Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very happy and excited to present to you today Piraeus Tower. It's actually one of our most beloved and important projects. I assume most of you have been to the Greek islands, and if you have probably passed from Piraeus, and it's a structure it's hard to miss. It sits really at the center of the port, the passenger port of Piraeus, and Piraeus Tower is actually the second tallest building in Greece, maybe the third now because maybe Marina Tower is actually the tallest at the moment. The building has a really interesting and fascinating story. It was built in the 70s. It's structured by Aristarchos Economou, a really pioneering engineer. It's actually one of the first seismically isolated high-rise buildings. And later on, in the early 80s, architects Ilias, 𝗦𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗿 and Loukou put on the facade and kind of like completed the shell of the building. However, the building remained empty and unoccupied for about 50 years, for let's say about a year ago, when it opened again after we were engaged in a substantial renovation of the project. So it was really this kind of like dormant structure. It had the nickname of the sleeping giant over the port of Piraeus. There were various urban myths that the building was leaning and that's why it could not be finished. But later on, in 2019, we were engaged to put a new facade and design the common spaces and turn this building into a mixed-use office and retail high-rise building. The challenge when we started working the building is how really to turn this dead object into this very alive structure for Piraeus, and how to reintroduce the project, the building, into the life of the city. As you can see, Athens is kind of like very flat, horizontal city with a kind of like a uniform height, and the building really stands out from everything around it. So the first thing we thought is how to basically kind of like reintegrate the scale of the building with the scale of the city. The building is already very iconic. It's much taller than anything around it, so we didn't want to make it more loud, but contrary, we wanted to make sure it will be more smoothly integrated in the urban fabric. So we wrapped the building with this facade. It's like a skin. The building is visible from many different sides and areas of the city. So we want to make it something quite dynamic that would really change its appearance depending on the light of the day, depending on how the building would interact with the daylight. And from some aspects, you could see that the building looks much more opaque. From other angles, it looks much more transparent. And this kind of like module of the facade, it kind of like more resembles the window facades of the buildings around. And this kind of like shifting pattern creates this very intense diagonals over the body of the building, and it interacts in various ways with the daylight. And obviously, another really important aspect of the design is turn this structure in a highly performing building, a very contemporary building. So we took very careful consideration of the performance of the building. So the facade that you saw is basically a shading device consisting of horizontal and vertical louvers that shade the glass, but also open up the views from the inside towards the outside, the port and the city. And we did a lot of like meticulous studies to find and calibrate the rotation and the dimension of the louvers. The whole system ended up reducing solar gain by 44% and the cooling loads of the building by 21%. And then we also kind of like incorporated various other strategies for like producing and saving energy. But I think the most important aspect of that process was what we did with the former facade, which was very carefully dismantled, and all the parts, like 99% of the materials of the former facade were recycled, and actually some materials like the glass, I think we recycled 126 tons of glass, came back, part of that material to the new facade, to the new glazing. And finally, another really important aspect of the design was how to integrate the base of the building and activate basically the ground. So this is like a larger podium with retail. We reactivated that perimeter arcade that was part of the original design with shops. It's like open to the public. So it basically kind of like eliminates that boundary between the city and the building itself. Now, I think in this overall process, the greatest challenge maybe was its construction. As I mentioned, there are not a lot of high-rise structures in Greece, so we're not used to build this type of projects. We utilized a unitized system, so it's basically a prefabricated facade system, glass panels with vertical and horizontal louvers coming up to the tower. So everything has to be pre-designed. We installed these brackets basically on the building. That's the only intervention besides the structural reinforcement of the concrete structure. For the facade, we installed these brackets, and then the panels would come up with a crane, and with the assistance of construction crews from the inside would hang the panels on the facade almost like a puzzle. So everything in a way had to be kind of like considered from the beginning, as the tolerance for mistake was very, very small. It's a bespoke facade, so it was really designed for the system. So we went through various tests, like wind tunnel tests, seismic, or this kind of like big machine that throws water and wind on the facade to basically certify the system. And another aspect that works concurrently and kind of like enhances the design concept was this sort of lighting design by Danilov studio. We integrated these vertical strip lights on every vertical louver. They are controlled entirely individually, so you can basically create various different color patterns and schemes. And that, I think, effect really transforms the building from this sleeping, dormant structure into this like new contemporary symbol for the city. And it's been used actually to even like celebrate various events, such as the French Olympics recently. So it's kind of like a tool almost to communicate in the city and bring people together. So I think, closing my presentation, for me what was really important takeaway from this project is that, you know, there are various existing structures in our cities, and I think rather than seeing them as obstacles or problems, we can actually deal with them as opportunities. And I think as we shape and give life to these structures and buildings, it's really an opportunity to radically rethink our cities. Thank you very much for your presence and attention. And I'll pass it to Elina.
Yes, it's a beautiful story of revival and reintegration. So let's start now with Elina Loukou, who's going to present the three-object apartment. Do you want to sit?
Okay, I might sit in the center because my chair is in the center. So.
Oh yeah, sit whatever you want.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. Today I'd like to share with you the story of this renovation project, which is a transformation of a first floor flat in a modernistic building, and how this became not only a contemporary home, but also a study on the potential beauty of the unfinished architecture. This project is what we later called the Three Objects apartment. The apartment we worked on is part of a modest modernist building located in the area of Papageorgiou, a quiet residential area very close to 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗿𝗁. The building itself was designed according to the principles of modernism: clear structure, honest materials, and functional spatial organization. Originally, it is consisted of 3 separate properties, one on each floor, all above a ground floor pilates area. But for over 30 years, the overall building, apart from the apartment on the first floor, stood abandoned. It had not attracted developers nor private owners. When our clients discovered it, instead of seeing a decay, they saw possibility. They described it as a dueling canvas, both on the first floor and on the pilates level. Now, in the city of Athens, pilates areas typically serve as car parks. In this case, however, the pilates was a completely open, covered space with no specific program. And this absence of function, that sense of openness, became a very important source of inspiration for the renovation above. That is the layout of the flat before the renovation. There were 4 bedrooms and a living area separated by the kitchen. Our client asked for a home that was maximally flexible and a space that could adapt as freely as the pilates on the ground floor. To respond to this, we began by exposing a raw structure the raw structure of the flat, stripping back the entire apartment to its bone, opening up as much as possible the living space, and keeping in the layout only what was essential. With this clean, honest structure as a foundation, we introduced 3 medium-scale functional objects. These objects, the colorful ones there, are organizing the space while preserving the sense of openness. The first object is around kitchen island. It merges a worktop with a tiny table, encouraging social cooking and creating a natural center of gatherings. Its circular form softens the geometry of the space and allows movement around it without a hierarchy. Referring to the Italian origins of the owner, we decided to clad this object as a monolithic volume with koto tiles used mainly for skirting boards in external spaces. The second object is a neat storage block. This compact volume contains a kitchen pantry, a studio desk, utilities, and the family's everyday storage needs. Instead of spreading storage throughout the flat, we concentrated it into a single clean element, allowing the rest of the space to remain uncluttered and open. This joinery item was another monolithic oak veneer volume. The third object is what we call the cross. This is a corridor partition made of 2 large pivoting panels and 2 pivot doors, all rotating around the same center. The cross allows the family to redefine the adjacent rooms at will. It can separate private and public areas, or it can be fully open to merge the spaces into one. It acts as a mechanism for flexibility, literally shaping the home according to the family's daily needs. This joinery is left unfinished. It's just like unpainted MDF lacquered only with a clear varnish, a finish that refers for us to the materiality of a cardboard. As the construction process was unfolded, we encountered hidden layers of the building history, layers that we decided not only to preserve but to celebrate. The concrete waffle ceiling, previously concealed, was carefully uncovered and restored in every room. The existing marble floor was removed but not discarded. Instead, it was broken down and reused as an aggregate for the new terrazzo floor. In fact, the marble fragments in the terrazzo were not placed randomly. Together with our clients, we broke the old marble slabs in selected spots and kept the fragments exactly as they fell, capturing the moment of breaking and freezing into the final floor design. Finally, in the bathrooms, the cementitious mortar hidden behind the old wall tiles was kept as the final wall finish. Although the building structure is robust and raw, we chose a palette of neutral colors and soft finishes for the floors, walls, and ceilings. This contrast was intentional. The softness of the tones balances the hardness of the materials, creating a calm and welcoming atmosphere within an architecture that retains its honesty. In the end, this renovation became far more than a simple update to the first floor apartment. It became an exploration of how architecture can embrace its own incompleteness, how an unfinished or imperfect structure can serve as a source of inspiration by combining flexibility, raw materiality, and carefully inserted functional elements. We created a home that is both contemporary and deeply respectful of the building's original character. It is a project that celebrates what already exists, while allowing the inhabitants to shape the space continuously, much like the open pilotis that first inspired them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elina. It's a very inspiring transformation, I have to say. Very exciting project. Let's continue with our third talk with Christiana Karfi, Senior Architect at Entopos Architects.
Good afternoon. I'm Christiana Karfi from Entopos Architects. Our office is based in Heraklion of Crete, and today we'll share with you the story of the Pergola house. The project is located in Crete, in the region of 𝗠liche, near the city of Agios Nikolaos, in an area just 10 minutes away from the city. Back in 1975, these two houses were built side by side on this plot. One was facing the sea, while the other one was introverted. And the owners were a family of 4, and they meant to be rented out for touristic use at first. But then when the children grew up, the plot was separated, and our client, the one with the introverted plot, came to us because he wanted to transform this house in order to turn it into his family home. So the existing building had a strict shape, was quite restrictive, had few and small openings, and there was not clear connection between indoor and outdoor spaces. So it was clear for us from the beginning that the transformation had to be bold. Now let's see some diagrams in order to explain our main design decisions. The entrance to the plot was specific, and this could not change. The house was south-facing, so it was probably going to expand to this direction. But this south orientation was also a problem because in Crete, sun is of course a friend, but sometimes it's also an enemy. So we had to face a challenge, how to open this house to the south garden without letting the sun overwhelm the interior. And the answer came through the pergola. The pergola filters sunlight, gives shade, and creates semi-outdoor spaces, essential during most of the year in Crete and in Greece in general. Another challenge was how to expand this house without losing the openness of the exterior space. So we added a volume on this southwest side of the plot, using this diagonal form in order to enhance once more the openness of the house, of the exterior space. And this volume also helped define the main outdoor living space of the house. Another move was to define the entrance, so we added a second volume here, and this volume also helped enhance the privacy and the independency between the two houses. The pool was placed at the south part of the plot, and in order to enhance the continuity underneath the pergola, we decided that the pillars should not have a strict rectangular shape, but a circular or a triangular one. Part of the pergola became part of the expansion of the house, connecting the existing volume and the expansion. So the final form of the plan took this form. We can see here in the plan in gray color the existing concrete volumes that were strengthened in order to support the first floor. In the first floor there is an office area and an ensuite bedroom, and the two floors are connected through a spiral staircase. In this construction detail, it's important for us to explain that this metal structure, the same metal structure, creates underneath the pergola spaces of different qualities. So from right to the left we can see that it supports concrete in order to shelter the interior space of the house, the expansion, or it has cement boards in the middle where there is semi-outdoor spaces are created. And gradually going to the left, we can see that the pergola becomes permeable and lighter and has just timber beams to provide shade. So these are some final photos. We can see the entrance shot, shot from the entrance, where this triangular column invites us to enter the house. The pool area, where we can see that the water of the pool influenced the colors of the pergola. Timber is used indoors for the staircase, which leads to the first floor, where we can see that these sliding timber panels can connect or disconnect the two spaces depending on the user's needs. And here are some photos from the construction site. We can see that the only thing remained here was this concrete skeleton, with these concrete beams and columns being repaired and strengthened. And the new construction is being realized here, the concrete and the metal structure, the first floor addition, the pool area, and a spot from the pool overflow. And this is how the project is taking its final form. A close-up shot from the spiral staircase. An important shot for us because we can see the continuity between indoor and outdoor spaces, and the big openings and the flooring materials help to that, this continuity between indoor and outdoor. Some details from the master bedroom and the bathroom with these solid volumes of marble and timber. Top view and bottom view from the staircase. And I would like to conclude with that. What we always think and realize when we see these final photos is that nothing reminds that something existed here before. But then we remind ourselves that this was never our intention. Preserving the existing was never our intention, because what we felt the clients, the users, and this space deserved was to open this house to its exterior space, and so we think we did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christiana.
Bravo.
And let's continue with Aimon Litinas, Senior Architect at LASSA Architects.
Exactly.
Presenting Theta House.
So shall I just press next? Okay, perfect. Can you hear me? Perfect. So hello, my name is Aimon Litinas. I am a Senior Architect and Construction Leader at LASSA Architects in Greece. LASSA Architects, founded by 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Ilias, and they combine their profession with academic research at the AA in London, and they try to find innovative strategies to minimize the construction cost and optimize the construction in general. So they operate from offices from Athens, Brussels, and London, and they work across the world. This is in China, development, and this is in Kuwait, the Ministry of Affairs. In Greece, you have 18 projects going on. This is in Paros, it's going to be delivered within the next months. This is 𝗦𝗽𝗻𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗏, the first project, and Key House. It was also shortlisted in ArchDaily. So what all these projects have in common is this ideology that the form is integrated based on the key objectives of each project. This can be the landscape integration, the activation of the body, and environmental resilience. Like here in 𝗦𝗽𝗻𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏, they used the shade as a medium to occupy the exterior terraces, while in Paros, the wind formed these round terraces. Projects as 𝗦𝗽𝗻𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Key House allowed us to test earlier this version of this method. This is a custom formwork that has been used in 𝗦𝗽𝗻𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏, which allowed for a minimization of cost. It was assembled on site in 5 days, and actually it became the final finish of the ceiling, which became an acoustic panel. And what we're going to do now is to see how these ideas were actually implemented in Theta House in 𝗦𝗏𝗏𝗏. So the key objective was actually derived from the site, which was quite slopey, 70% inclination. Very important was the orientation, but also it was seafront. So we try actually to hide the building from the sea, but in general, try to exploit the panorama views that it could go. So this is the view from the sea. With the use of very precise geometry, we managed to hide the building from the sea. It's actually merged into the landscape. And as you approach it, it kind of invites you to discover it. So the organization is actually, can you see my thing or no?
Yes.
Okay. So it is in 3 levels, and they all actually following the terrain. The main level is the living room, which is conceived as a pavilion. Upper are the bedrooms, and then lower is a guest house with its own access. Very important was the courtyard, which is not conceived as secluded, but it actually becomes a space that flows the circulation at the core of the building. And also it enhances for activities, like this was used for breakfast because it creates a microclimate, but also it gives nice views to the sky. Very key important was the elliptical canopy on top, which gives a continuity to the whole project, but also it has the 2 oculuses, which you cannot see, but you will see it later, which frame existing tree and the entrance. This is the main living floor, open plan, kitchen and living room, and of course it is conceived as a pavilion, which is open to multiple sides. On top we have 3 bedrooms and a loggia. This is a view again of the courtyard with the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 bedrooms. A very important part was also the use of pocket sliding windows, which disappeared completely inside the walls, minimizing the interior and exterior relationship. Across the project, there is a cascade of terraces that are following the terrain. And this is the Trioculus terrace, which frames the existing tree. This is the pool terrace, a bit lower, but also follows the terrain. And this is the view from the pool. So what is really important to understand here is how the accuracy of the geometry that it needed in order to proceed with this kind of structure. So this needs to be really, it was prefabricated and brought on site, so it should match with millimeters the accuracy. Therefore, we used a custom formwork technique made with CNC cut in local wood shop. And with that, what we did is that we minimized the cost, we minimized the toleration of an error, and it was really fast. Actually, me and my team were 4 people, and we assembled it in 3 hours, and we had the result that we wanted. Another digital tool that we used was, in order to bring back and restore the terrain slope, we scanned the terrain, and then we, with EPS, we recreated. So, you know, also for planning department reasons, you need to restore completely the roof. This is the construction drawing, the placement, and this was the result. We have a fully integrated, you see, hyposkafo, and of course a geometry that follows almost submissively the terrain and creates this experience. So for interiors, this is, doesn't play. Okay, sorry. Now it plays. Okay, so for interiors, we have this 13.5 meters glazing that opens up and brings the exterior inside. This is you see the minimum relationship of interior-exterior, and the pergola intensifies this experience. This is the bedroom, corner window. A marble bathtub cut in CNC from local CNC marble technician. And the material used were terrazzo with local aggregates, and some bespoke items were used again with this ideology of prefabrication, and then with local craftsmanship were assembled on site, giving this experience. And so I would like to say that by using this very specific geometry which follows the terrains, the user immerses himself into the landscape, and also with the use of native landscape as a design tool, this intensifies the experience. And I would like to close with how Theta House is an example of how digital tools and fabrication can be used directly in construction to improve accuracy, reduce time and cost, and support environmental and economic sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Aimon.
Thank you.
Let's give it up for our 4 speakers and for their very much inspiring insights. And let's open the conversation with a few questions that connects your projects and the processes. Thank you again. And congrats again on being nominated for the Building of the Year award. It's amazing. And also to have everyone, all of you, our users, people around the world vote for you. So that's great to hear, because these projects are very much inspiring. Ilias, I want to start with you. So I want to discuss a bit about the process. All of the projects that we saw have their different challenges. In your project, what was the most defining challenge, in your opinion, and how did it shape your approach?
Interesting, because when this is really like it's like a COVID baby, this project. So basically, there was an invited competition. We got invited to participate for the redesign of the facade initially, and a week later we had the first lockdown. And it was only like a few months since we had established our office in Greece, after having spent a fair amount of time in New York. So the office was new, the team, we didn't have any of the established processes, workflows, people. So it was actually quite chaotic in a way. Maybe we were lucky because we didn't have anything else to do, so we were sort of working all the time.
Focusing on this project.
Focusing on the project. But I think, obviously, I think there were two, let's say, main elements. One of them, I think, which is the most important, was people. This is not like a personal, obviously, project. So we were lucky having a great team in our office, but also externally. So we worked from very early on with the 𝗦𝗻𝗄𝗃𝗏, the facade engineer based in London, because I think in this type of work, I think design and engineering go hand by hand. So it's not something you can leave for later. So that's something we work very collaboratively from the beginning. And actually at the end, very little changed in the implementation. Even the overall dimensions of the panels, 180 by 330, remained exactly the same, because we had the concept kind of addressed many of the technical issues from really early in the process, and I think that was key for the realization of the project.
So the concept was not affected by COVID. It was just the project was delayed.
Due to COVID?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if also there was any impact on your design or on your collaboration with other teams.
The project was not necessarily delayed. What was, I think, another big challenge was what I mentioned also during the talk, is that this was quite new for the Greek construction market. The other towers hadn't started at the Ellinikon. This was this sort of prefabricated facade. It's really not something being implemented in Greece. We actually work, it's a bit more ad hoc, we figure out also a lot of things on site. There you have to consider everything from very early on in the process. So it was actually, I think, it took a time, and it was a learning curve for a lot of the collaborators, the client, the contractor, to really also get convinced that this was the right path to realize the project. And actually it was the only path to realize the project.
And the public, because it's quite an emblematic project that was sitting there, that was dormant, you mentioned that. So when you were designing, was there any kind of conversation with the public? Were they open for it? Were they excited for this rehabilitation?
I think people were excited, but maybe that was also a difficult moment, because we couldn't have that interaction because of COVID. So it's funny, I even actually met our closest collaborators, our client, the contractors, all the other consultants. During construction, during the design, we've never met in person, which is crazy, I think, for a project, right? Because we just work and exchange ideas with people. So in that sense, also maybe that time was also quite
different,
quiet for the public, because people were not out to even see and observe what was happening. But I think there was a huge disbelief around the project, because it remained dormant for so many years. So when the first sort of panels started going up, I think everyone was really excited to see that, this building was becoming finally alive.
And it's part of the skyline. It's a huge tower, and it's part of the collective memory also of people. So
of course, yes.
They have definitely established a sort of relationship, at least visually, with the building itself.
Yeah.
And you did mention that there is some sort of public also function in the
there
building
is,
itself.
and I think everyone is sort of welcome to go and visit. First of all, the ground floor is retail, so anyone can walk in. But on the third floor, There is this what we call podium, which is the base of the building. There is there a terrace which is open to the public. There's like a restaurant and a cafe, and you get a quite nice experience of the port. So, and you can also get very close to the facade and see the project from close up. So I think everyone is sort of welcome and encourage everyone to visit the project if they are in Piraeus.
Thank you, Ilias. Aimon, I want to ask you also almost the same question. You mentioned, we talked a lot about the context, and I do believe this could be one of the most defining, let's say, challenges of your project. Was there anything else? Because for you, what's different than the rest is that it's a new structure, it has a specific type of context, and you have a private client also because it's a house.
Exactly.
So can you walk us through maybe the specific challenges? What was the main one? What was the defining one?
Sure, I would, because he said, Ilias said a word about disbelief. Disbelief is exactly what happened when I went to the excavator and I told him the house is going to be upstairs. He's going to say, well, no way. So, okay, actually, the slope of the terrain was such big, so, you should anchor your project in this concept because, it's, otherwise it's catastrophic. So environmental analysis and terrain analysis was very important, also the shading, and to, as much as possible, to remain intact the wild, because also the client had the love for his terrain, he don't want to ruin it. So these were actually the actual...
What are we going to do?
Yes.
With the terrain, and the function was set obviously by the client. Did you have any room in terms of like what to add, what to change there, or you had a very strict brief?
Oh, the brief actually, the client of course explained the needs, etc., and she asked very specific for a moment that she wanted to show the rock. She wanted inside the house to have. I didn't saw that. I had so many images. I just. So let's say she gave a lot of freedom, I would say, to the design architects. But yes, the form came through really the analysis of the plot, and these are the restrictions that actually formed it.
So the result of the context.
Exactly.
Thank you, Aimon. Let's go back to the transformations and maybe also talk with Elina. Like, I'm a big fan of that project. And I want to understand, because you mentioned, for example, the ceiling, like you discovered the ceiling on site. What other kind of decisions changed the trajectory of your project, just like the ceiling? Something that you discovered, something that happened within the process?
Yeah, it was actually a quite special project because, as I mentioned before, it was in between something we wanted to polish, but something that we wanted to let it as it is, which is quite challenging when you're actually trying to do it.
It's the most challenging, actually.
I think well, it's the different kind of challenges, let's say. So one part that was I think the success at the end of this story, that the three objects we mentioned, they were almost loose furniture in the space, and the other story was the story of the shell. So the shell was like a completely different narrative during the construction, because we didn't know what is going to be revealed when we
from
were
a structural perspective or from a design?
Both.
Okay.
For example, the majority of the baffle ceiling was covered, and in the living space in the front, it was ordinary, let's say, in a specific grid and really nicely made. But as we were going at the back, the little square and the baffles, they were completely randomly placed. So that was a little bit of a challenge, because we didn't really know what is going to be revealed from the waffle, then from the waffle ceiling. Then the floor and that was later used as an aggregate for the terrazzo floor. And how we will break it, and how it's going to be like this, these patterns. That was another challenge because, of course, when we were placing it, then there were another group of technicians that they were walking in the site, and they were like throwing. Like pushing away the beads because they thought that was an accident. It was actually it was an accident, but that was what we wanted. So majority of the technicians they didn't really understood what we're doing.
It's an experimentation, right? Because you're changing as you go.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge was that even for me, I didn't know where this is actually finishing. When is the end? Therefore, for example, when we varnish the railing on the balconies with this, how we call it, like anti-rusty,
anti-rust, yeah.
Yeah, like the orange one. Then we didn't. But our intention was to match it with the windows and the doors. But then the whole project it became so raw at the end that we just let it as it was, even with that like orangey.
So your design was very flexible, I have to say, in terms of a process at least. So you were able to change on site, take things, remove things.
The funny story is that the objects remained in detail, in exact detail as it was designed originally.
Oh wow!
So we didn't change a millimeter of these three objects, but the entire flat and the sense and the as I call the cell was an improvisation.
And like I love this flexibility when it comes to also like the design itself, the process. But I also like to ask the question about clients because they're
about light.
Clients.
Light.
Your clients.
Are my clients?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I don't think these can actually. Like, how flexible were the clients?
I guess this is the right question, right? Who are these clients?
Who are these clients, Elina? And can we work with them?
They are amazing clients. I mean, for me, they were. I think we both knew each other from London. We lived for many years there. We were really fan of brutalism. So when we first saw it, we weren't scared. And we had, like, you know, the whole family of the owner behind us saying, "Are you crazy? What is this? What is this, a monster? It's going to break down." So, but they saw this vision, and I am very close to them. They were very good friends of mine. I don't think that. I mean, I hope maybe we can do the same thing with people we don't know, but we had a very special
bond. Anyways, great
I
architecture.
didn't have to
also
convince them to go ahead with something that someone else would think is crazy.
I mean, great architecture also depends on great clients that are
one
actually
of
giving
the
us
third,
the commission.
yeah.
I want to talk with you, Christiana, about a different type of commission, which is also a transformation. But you mentioned somewhere that it's a different type of preservation. So what you kept, what you did not keep, I'm comparing this a bit to Elina's approach. So what decision changed the trajectory of your project? What did you decide to keep? Why did you not decide to keep? And I know that you removed a lot of things. And
what did you decide? What?
To keep.
Can you repeat? To keep, yes. I said that we didn't preserve anything.
Exactly, yeah.
Just the concrete structure. This was the challenge for us, I think. At first, when we were designing, in order to open our minds and not be strict to this shape, but then I think we could have demolished it. The challenge was financial also, because as you see, the project, everybody tells me, but there was something there existing. I didn't even know. Even my colleagues that I was preparing this presentation today told me yesterday, I didn't know that something existed there. Colleagues that were not at this time when we were realizing the project. So we could have demolished it, but it was a financial reason that led us to keep the structure. What I mean, if there was something of great value, of course, we should have found ways to keep something, but it's in an area, in a touristic area. The building was like a box in a plot with no relation between its garden, a beautiful garden. So our decision was this for these reasons, and then we kept the structure because the client couldn't pay more. He paid a lot, but we decided that this should be maintained for financial reasons. And that's it.
It dictates anyway a lot of the decisions that we have to make anyways as architects, and it's very important to also discuss these. But I also like the idea that you mentioned that something are valuable, we should keep, maybe like in Elina's project, like there is a potential. And sometimes, as you said, it was closing the relationship with the garden, with a lot of different things. So some things need to be reworked, and it's also okay. So it is part also of the concept of preservation.
Yes, for example, Piraeus building, it's for urbanism. It's a building important for the urban vision of Piraeus. Of course, you will keep these kind of buildings. In this case, in our case, I think you, as an architect, you have the
Responsibility.
You have the responsibility to answer to yourself. Is it valuable to keep it or not? Maybe
Perfect,
it's not
yeah.
always worth it to keep something.
Yeah, and that's very interesting also. So each one of the different projects have a different problematic and has a different also outcome. Going back to the Ilias, so we're also discussing 4 different projects, each one rooted in a different Greek setting. How does your project respond to its local context, especially that you had the structure that was already there, whether we're talking about cultural context, whether we're talking about environmental, also you mentioned that, or urban in your case?
Yeah, I think Piraeus is not like, let's say, your what we have in imagination of a kind of like Greek picturesque island or natural
House.
setting, let's say, right? It's like a kind of like a intense, rough urban environment. So I think for us it was not so much about the context in a more, let's say, aesthetic sense, but it was more about a reading of the city. And I think Piraeus is really a fascinating area in Athens and in Greece. It has the port, commercial port, and the passenger port. It's actually one of the most important ports at the moment in Europe, the commercial port. It has residential, like a lot of people actually live in Piraeus, and actually I think people from Piraeus are really passionate about the area. There's still some light manufacturing, especially things that have to do with the port. So this is like really embedded within the urban fabric. And lately we also see like, some various sort of cultural activities, galleries, interesting things for fun, for leisure, restaurants. So it's a very alive neighborhood with an energy that's what actually we tried to capture with the building. So from, let's say, this sort of kind of like static thing, the idea was by introducing this sense of movement, by sort of creating a structure that is constantly changing. We try to basically, let's say, reflect on that very dynamic energy of the area.
And also, I think you had the big challenge of how to make it environmentally, conscious and anchored in the 21st century, because it is a tower, it's a modernist tower, right?
Of course, and I think it's especially in this type of projects, the kind of like this idea of adaptive reuse or a reuse of a building is very important. The client also ran a study with the University of West Attica, and they kind of like compared the carbon saved, the embodied carbon in the building versus what you would spend in order to build a new building. If I remember correctly, it was like almost like the footprint of 30,000 people in a year. So it's like actually a small Greek city, let's say. So that was, I think, a really important factor. That was the decision of the client to keep this structure. And then obviously, yes, with the design, we try to make this into this sort of high-performing structure that would reflect. So we didn't change, let's say, the idea, the original idea of the tower. So we kept the exact shape and the podium and the overall logic, because I thought we thought it was like very well thought and kind of like considered how it enters the city, but try to give a more fresh perspective through the facade, which is also the main element that helps with improving the performance also of the building and making a contemporary workplace environment.
You all have established offices and relatively young offices, let's say. Aimon, I want to start with you and ask, how do you see Greek architecture evolving today, and where do your projects fit within this broader narrative?
I think that already most of the projects actually covered this, that the reuse of materials is something really, really important. I mean, okay, we're full of buildings, let's say, and we really need to think about reusing and what medium we should actually embed in that. And going back to let's say, to my lecture, I believe that we should really integrate digital tools into the design, especially now that we have this booming of AI, the new revolution. We could somehow integrate these tools and somehow create a better building environment.
And Elina, you also talked about, you reused a lot of the materials, so I think this question is also for you. So how do you see Greek architecture evolving today?
You mean in terms of the sustainability, or in general?
In general, however you perceive it.
I mean, it's, as the talk before, they were talking about, again, like the tourism and the majority of the structures at the moment are on the islands, and to all this, let's say, hospitality. This is how I see Greek architecture at the moment. We are not in this area.
Sector.
I mean, since I was studying architecture, I had a very special love to the existing structures. This is something that I had imagined me doing, like trying to retain. So I don't think that we necessarily match to the overall trend of architecture.
You feel like the overall trend is more into hospitality now in Greece?
I think majority of the projects at the moment is, yeah.
Not on ArchDaily. Not the Greek architecture on ArchDaily, yeah. I want to say.
Oh, you mean, I mean for Greek architecture, yeah.
I'm talking about really good architecture here.
Oh, really good is, I don't think it's, it's not the same.
I think, we went through like a 10-year financial crisis, which as an effect had, like, the construction had really stalled, and there was actually basically almost no architecture or built environment being produced. And then I think after that, it's almost like the spring that you compress and then it explodes. So there's like a lot of I think activity, indeed mainly in the beginning hospitality. I think now it's getting a bit more balanced and spread into also various other sectors. I think what I am hoping and I feel it's maybe slowly starting is I think we need to have some maybe now broader and maybe more even more critical conversations about our built environment and how we build, where we build. After this time of I think intense production where maybe people are sort of developing stuff without a lot of consideration, I think I'm hoping that the let's say the sort of process is slowly maturing, and it's an opportunity to have these broader conversations and zoom out a little bit and establish let's say the values and parameters that we think are important in shaping that environment. And I think by maybe this is also great from this process of the ArchDaily Awards, is that you get exposed to these amazing projects that each one of them through their approach and process, they have something to tell, and then I think they have also a position about how things
are moving,
should be and should move.
And
by studying these projects, you start building that conversation, I think.
And you guys are part of this narrative. Christiana, I also want to ask you the same question. How do you see the Greek architecture evolving?
Although I'm personally really worried about what Elina started to say about the hospitality and all this stuff, and in Crete, south of Crete is totally changing due to an airport coming there, and the whole island will become full of buildings, but I think this is not something that we can control, unfortunately. So I'm trying to see it in a positive way, and I see that there are architects they always exist architects that can make great projects, and I think it's important that I think now there are more people, and I don't mean architects, common people that have architectural education a little bit more than in past years. We all have in mind Greek cities that are mostly ugly because in the past clients went to a civil engineer, and architects people didn't even discrete what architect and what a civil engineer does and what's their job. I think this is improving a little. I'm trying to see it a little positive. And if we think about Litinas that was presented before, if there was not this client that believed and gave this project to K Studio, this would never have happened. So I believe this is important. And now in the audience, I think they're all architects. It would be nice if the audience had not only architects but common people, or in schools we have more architectural education becoming from children. I don't know, in their
or understanding, like if it's not education, I mean understanding of space, understanding of what surrounds us,
understanding the importance of architecture, and getting an architect that it's his job to design.
And I think it's a bit also on architects, because at some point our field was very closed off. Now we're opening up more to collaborations, to working with other people. You mentioned engineers, but I also bring in urban designers, landscape architects, everyone contributing also some sort, and the community itself. So I feel like it's a two-way street. We also kind of closed off the field a bit. But around the world, if you compare how people are starting to perceive the architectural profession, it's becoming a bit more inclusive in the sense that people are starting to understand this again, to look into it, and to start understanding that this is affecting them. Like they are living in the built environment. Whatever they do there shapes everything, their behavior, everything else. And so let's conclude, because I know that there are also like a lot of students in this fair. And I want to ask each one of you, starting with you, Aimon, what do you hope people take away from your project? The ones that listened to your presentation today.
It was the closing phrase. I believe that with using the digital tools, but also combined with local craftsmanship, which is very important for the locals also, we can really optimize the cost and the time and the accuracy of the project. So this is actually what I wanted to go through.
Super interesting. Christiana?
From our project, this specific project.
Like, what do you want them to take with you from this project or your approach in general?
Well, generally in our office we're trying to read the topos, the place. This is why Entopos is called. So this first analysis of where you are, the history, when it's needed, the memory, the landscape. Okay, in this specific project, there was not a context, there was not a settlement, a traditional thing to be influenced. But generally, I think they should have in mind, read, analyze, and find these things that they will keep in mind when they are designing each time. It may be the landscape, the morphology, the history, settlement, traditional that's near it, and they want to get inspired from that.
Thank you. That's very beautiful, actually. Elina, asking you the same question. So, what do you hope people take away from your project?
Yeah, I think in general, I was also suffering from how serious architecture is and we're trained to be. So, I mean, when we started creating our own language, etc., there's something very playful in the process of that specific project and in the rest of the projects we're doing. So I would like them to keep that that architecture could also be a kind of a play, fun,
Oh, that's
fun,
nice. That's
or
nice.
like
That's nice. what
in
you said.
between,
Yeah.
or like more artistic, also not that serious.
Like, it's creative, it's a lot of curiosity, discovery. Let's really
that could also be
engage with
architecture.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
Without saying that the rest of the approaches are not architectural, but I'm saying that I think it's kind of missing.
Going back to where, like, we're putting the Lego parts
Yeah,
and exploring.
yeah.
Thank you. Ilias?
I think there is something about that specific project about architecture, let's say, in time, because as I sort of close the presentation, just saying that I think it's quite an opportunity and fascinating to work with existing buildings. I think many times we are, and students are very excited to design something new, but giving, let's say, new life to almost like a patient to an existing structure can also be very fulfilling and I think meaningful for our cities, because it builds that continuity. Because existing structures, they carry memories, history. They're part of the sort of collective, let's say, imagination of the city, and it's really important to take care of them properly when it's meaning for them. It's even with Piraeus, like, fascinating to see that the building was built 50 years ago, was standing there, not being used, and now it had the opportunity to get a second life for another 50 years or more. This for me, this kind of like, it's also like I think a contrast with what we experience today. With everything is like super fast, changing all the time, ideas, trends, technologies. But I feel like architecture is sort of moving in a different pace.
100%.
So I think by working in this type of projects, this is like an experience you get. But at the end, I think is very fulfilling.
Thank you very much for all your insights, for all your contribution. Let's hear it, please, to Ilias, Elina, Christiana, and Aimon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.